The NBA offseason is officially here now that the Denver Nuggets have been crowned champions of the season. Congratulations to them, they obviously deserved it, but while they'll be off celebrating their glorious accomplishment, the rest of the NBA and even their own front office will be preparing for the summer to come where big moves are bound to happen across the board. Every single team has their own questions that need answering with their own set of weaknesses to address, and making trades is one of the best ways to do that. That brings us to today's video and tomorrow's video, where I will be going through every single NBA team, identifying the one player most likely to be traded from each team. In this video, I'll be going through the teams in the Eastern Conference, then tomorrow, I'll finish off with the teams in the Western Conference, so stay tuned for that video as well. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Going in alphabetical order, we'll start off with the Atlanta Hawks, and the player they are most likely to trade this summer is John Collins. John Collins is a trade block Hall of Famer at this point because his name has been in trade rumors for years now, yet no deal has come about yet. This summer though is probably the most likely time for that to change, as the Hawks have very few other options regarding finding ways to improve. Collins has expressed an eagerness to find a new home, he's probably the most expendable asset in their current lineup, and he has enough value to warrant a worthwhile return. Next up is the Boston Celtics, and the player they are most likely to trade this summer is Jaylen Brown. I've discussed Brown in a few of my most recent videos, but basically him and the Celtics are in a weird spot. Brown wasn't a very big fan of them throwing his name into trade offers in each of the last 2 seasons. He's been vocal about his concerns with certain aspects of the organization, and now the Celtics either have to give him a monstrous contract worth nearly $300 million if they want to keep him long term. Whether it comes down to Brown requesting a trade or not, I do believe this is an avenue that the Celtics will explore, because under the new CBA, his extension could cripple them. Up next is the Brooklyn Nets, and the player they're most likely to trade is Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas took the league by storm for about a week this season before he was inexplicably phased out of the rotation, but after dropping over 40 points in 3 consecutive games, he showed that he clearly has potential as a scoring threat. The Nets don't seem to be the right fit for him, but he's exactly the kind of talent that rebuilding squads take a flyer on and give a chance to, so the Nets should look to move him if they don't plan on using him. Next is the Charlotte Hornets, and the player they're most likely to trade is Terry Rozier. Rozier received a ton of interest at this season's trade deadline according to reports, but no deal actually got finalized. He's the kind of talent that can definitely contribute for a team looking to contend for the playoffs, and with the Hornets still undergoing a rebuild, they should absolutely be looking to cash in on their veteran guys to prioritize the development of their prospects. Up next is the Chicago Bulls, and the player they are most likely to trade this summer is Zach LaVine. The Bulls really don't have much to offer, so if they're going to make a move, it'll likely be a big one that sees them blow things up. The Bulls went all in 2 years ago, and what that has netted them is a first-round exit from the playoffs and a play-in tournament appearance that resulted in them missing the playoffs. Their ceiling moving forward is very low with what they currently have, so moving LaVine for assets to start fresh may end up being their best option. Next up is the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the player they're most likely to trade is Isaac Okoro. The Cavaliers' biggest need right now is an impactful small forward because that was the position that held them back the most this year. Having to choose between Okoro, Cedi Osman, and Dean Wade at that spot is a pretty poor rotation for a playoff team hoping to make a run, and Okoro has shown the most promise as a defender to maybe draw some interest on the trade block. It's not going to be an easy thing to find an upgrade, but it's what they have to work with. Next up is the Detroit Pistons, and the player they're most likely to trade is Alec Burks. Burks just had his team option picked up because the Pistons have already had teams calling them interested in acquiring Burks. He's a solid veteran scoring threat who also happens to be a good locker room guy to have. He's shot over 40% from 3 in each of the last 3 seasons, and the Pistons know they'll be able to get something in return for him. Up next is the Indiana Pacers, and the player they're most likely to trade this summer is Buddy Hield. Hield is going into the last year of his current contract, and it's unlikely that the Pacers plan to extend him based on the timeline that they're on as a young team on the rise. He's one of the league's best volume shooters from 3, so he too will have plenty of suitors for teams with short-term aspirations, while the Pacers continue to keep their eyes on the long view. Next up is the Miami Heat, and the player they're most likely to trade is Tyler Herro. It's going to be hard for the Heat to pull off a move this offseason because of their cap constraints and lack of expendable pieces, but anything they intend to do will start with Tyler Herro headlining the package. They just made it all the way to the NBA Finals without Herro even playing, and while Herro has proven to be a quality scoring threat with a 6th Man of the Year award under his belt, he's easily the most expendable piece that the Heat have. They know they need to get aggressive to stay in contention, so luring Herro is their best chance of doing that. Up next is the Milwaukee Bucks, and the player they're most likely to trade is Bobby Portis. The Bucks are at risk of losing Brook Lopez to free agency unless they free up some cash to pay him, which he feels that he deserves. He's a key piece to the team's success, and they're already approaching the cap ceiling, so somebody is going to have to go. Bobby Portis and his $12 million per year contract is unfortunately most likely to draw the short end of the stick, and after yet another great season as a dominant rebounder and floor spacer, the Bucks won't have any problem finding takers with a good offer for him because he is a quality piece to have in the rotation. Next is the New York Knicks, and the player they're most likely to trade is Evan Fournier. A lot of you probably forgot Fournier was even still on the team after they removed him entirely from their rotation, but both sides are well aware that Fournier's time in New York is over, and they will be working together to try to find him a new home this summer. His production took a nosedive early on this season when he was still playing, so the Knicks likely won't get much in return for him, but they'll take whatever they can get at this point. Up next is the Orlando Magic, and the player they're most likely to trade is Jonathan Isaac. Isaac has played just 11 total games in the last 3 seasons, and the Magic no longer have the patience to deal with that. They're ready to push forward with the guys that they have, and Isaac does not seem to be a part of their plans any longer. He too will not be easy to trade because he's being paid decent money to be a liability on the roster, but the fact that he was a great defensive talent a few years ago may be enough to convince a team to take a chance on him even if the payoff doesn't quite come from it. Next is the Philadelphia 76ers, and the player they're most likely to trade is Tobias Harris. Harris signed a max contract 4 years ago, and that contract has been crippling the team ever since. We've finally arrived at the final year of that deal, which makes moving him in a trade way easier, because teams are far more likely to take in a bad contract if it's just a 1-year deal that comes off of the books immediately the next season. Up next is the Toronto Raptors, and the player they're most likely to trade is OG Anunoby. The Raptors seem to be headed in a new direction as Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent are free agents, they brought in a new head coach, and other key guys are on the last year of their current deals. Anunoby has reportedly been seeking a bigger role, and he was a popular name around the trade deadline this year too. The Raptors turned down every offer that they got for him with hopes of making a playoff run, but that didn't come about, so now they're probably going to reconvene on those prior discussions and take what they can get for him. And finally, the last team up is the Washington Wizards, and the player they're most likely to trade is Bradley Beal. The Wizards' future seems incredibly bleak after missing the playoffs entirely, while also seeing Kyle Kuzma and Kristaps Porzingis both potentially leave in free agency this summer. Beal wants to win, and with the Wizards not really being in a position to build a winner around him, a trade request seems almost inevitable. His no-trade clause allows him to have final say on where he goes, but he and the front office are on good terms and will work together to find the best option for him. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below who you think is getting traded this offseason. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.